And we lived in a reconverted garage, which his sister and her husband had redone. It was a cute little place. It was kind of a living, bedroom, kitchen, all in one room, and it had a couple of rooms at the back, little tiny storage rooms and washrooms and so on at the back, and we were quite happy there. One day, his mom and his sister came over to visit me. Wes had already been born. He was 9 months old, and he was in the crib, and they came over to visit. And it was kind of lucky they did, because usually I would just pop over to their place and visit with them while Wes was having his little snooze in his crib, which was only about from, maybe 50 feet away. But anyway, they were over this day, and while we were visiting, we heard this crackling up in the ceiling, and I looked in the stove, and there was wood in there. We had a wood stove. There was wood that had never even started to burn yet, and I looked up in the ceiling, and I could see flames going around up this chimney. And we could tell that things were not good. So we told Grandma to go phone the fire department. So she ran to phone the fire department. Edith took the baby out of the crib and ran out of the house, and I started throwing things out the door. And I had just bought a beautiful silk dress. It was a gorgeous dress. I threw it out the door. It was still in the box. And of course, Grandma phoned the fire department. They said it wasn't their jurisdiction, so they had to move it to a different jurisdiction. And by the time they got there, 15 minutes later, everything was in ruins. This is one of the relics that is left from that fire. You can see that it has still got the burn marks on it. Fred wasn't a member when we got married, but 10 months after we were married, he had the discussions from the bishop in Vancouver, and he joined the church too, and he was smoking at the time, and he thought he was going to be able to quit. Well, he did quit, and he got baptized, and like a lot of other people, couldn't handle it, and he went back smoking again. And when Wes was about 5 years old, he would sit on his dad's knee and take the cigarettes out of his mouth. And Fred said to me, he says, when my children start taking cigarettes out of my mouth, it's time to quit. We wanted to go to the temple, to be sealed in the temple, and I said, well, you can't go if you smoke. So we went to see the stake president, and he said, would you like to be administered to? And Fred said, yes. He said, I would. I want to go to the temple. So he administered to him with Brother Tillich, his name was, an uncle of Bill and Lois. And Fred never smoked again. He never, ever took another cigarette. One of the dresses my mom made, and she made a little slip for it, and she did a lot of crocheting, about this much all around them. And I was, I guess, baptized or blessed or something in it. And so when my kids were born, they all were blessed in that dress, even the boys. The boy said, oh, that was kind of funny for a boy to be put in a dress, but that's what I did until Don came along, and Don wasn't blessed in it. He had a little pair of rompers, I think. Jim was born the 29th of August, 1946. Wes was born on the 21st of May, 1944. And this is a picture of my firstborn. He was a beautiful baby, and he wasn't a very happy baby. He had colic, and he cried a lot. And as we had our children, after that we had Myrna, and she was a doll. In fact, I used to take her to the health clinic, and this good-looking doctor, he said, looked at her and he said, boy, he says, I was born 30 years too soon. It was kind of nice. She was a pretty baby. And then Don came along. He was a beautiful baby. That was when we were in Claire's home. He was born 17th of February, 1953. And we lived there for 2.5 years and transferred again. My kids said they never did have a home. Myrna was born on the 12th of January, 1950. So we moved to Southport. And that is where the fun began. Because, what have we here? Southport. We have the Hillier family, and this is the PMQs that we lived in for 6.5 years. We also lived 6.5 years in Sea Island, Vancouver. And Dad must have been taking this picture. Anyway, it was a great family. We had a wonderful family. Wes kind of got into a little bit of trouble there. But
what trouble?
Oh, he got in trouble at school and got kicked out of school. I don't know how many times we tried to keep that kid in school. And he was smart. He even had some of his essays put in the paper, the Portage Graphic. The teacher put his efforts in the paper, and we sent a lot of his stuff out to Ottawa, which all got lost for some reason. And he was good in everything except math, and he still can't do math. But it was there that our youngest was born. I had an operation, and the doctor said, no, you won't be able to have any more babies. For some reason, we had one more. And if I hadn't had that one more, our lives would have been so much different and so much less important. And I just thank Heavenly Father every day for saving her. And it was because of the priesthood that she's here today, too. Because she came at a 7-month time, and she weighed 3 pounds, 8 ounces, I believe. And the doctor said that he didn't think that either one of us would live. And Fred said, he says, you do what you can, and we'll do what we can. So he got all the branch members together, and they fasted and they prayed that everything would be okay. And as she was coming along, the doctor said she was breached and she wouldn't make it. He told Fred that your wife maybe will live, but your baby won't. And so we all prayed, and Howard Lane and Fred gave me a blessing that everything would be all right. The next morning the doctor said, did you feel any movement in the night? And I said, no. He said, well, the baby's not breached anymore. The baby will be born normally. And after a lot of painful hours, she was born. And this doctor still didn't think that she was going to live. I could see what he was doing. He was pressing on her chest and blowing in her mouth, and finally he wrapped her in a blanket and gave her to the nurse, and he said, go give her suction. So they took her away, and we had a nurse for her for one night, and I guess we never looked back. Wes got married to Janice Wells, and they had one boy. He has a son who lives in Kamloops. He's married to Monica, and they have a daughter, Jade. And John will be 39 years old, I guess, this October. And he's my oldest grandchild. Myrna had 2 boys, and she adopted Terry, and Terry says she's my first granddaughter. And Jim had Jim got married, when? It's here somewhere. He got married February 14th of February 1972, and they have 11 children and 3 adopted children. Myrna, I told you about Myrna. Don has 4 children. Don married Norma Dolly, and Don was born the 17th of February 1953. They have 4 children and 2 adopted children. Well, I tell you one thing. Dad and I never had crosswords of each other, ever. We never, ever had a crossword. And I don't know how many couples could say that. Not very many, I don't think. So it was a good life. It was a wonderful life. He was flying all over the world all the time because he was an airman, and he was a flight sergeant. He used to go and take courses so that he could get more money. He always felt that we didn't have enough money, and he would get a little bit more money if he took this course. Yeah, it was true, he did get a little bit more money, and it helped, but in the meantime, I was alone with these 5 kids, and it wasn't easy. He went to, way up north. Ellesmere Island is where it was. He went to Ellesmere Island for 4 months, and I have pictures of him sitting in the tents with the Eskimo people, and he loved them. He thought they were so cute. The little children were so cute. And that was when I just had Wes and Jim, though. That was early on in our marriage. And he was away so long. And it didn't matter what station we went to, he was always gone, it seemed to me. He would go away and be away for 3 months or 2 months on course, and he always got good marks. He was really good. During the war, he taught aero engine mechanics to the pilots who came over to train to be pilots. They had to know all about the engines too. And we have pictures of him teaching the pilots. And he went all around the world when he was a flight engineer. He got to be a flight engineer, and he would fly over to Japan and down to South America. He flew over to Europe. Here's a picture of my mom and dad on their 50th anniversary. My dad got sick, and he got leukemia. He had it for 5 years, and he passed away while we were in Rivers. One time when I went from Rivers, picked up my mom in Portage-la-Prairie and went on to Winnipeg when he was sick in the hospital in Winnipeg. And we had a car that wasn't working too well. If we ever stopped it, we had a hard time to get it to go. And we got in there and we saw my dad, and he didn't look very well. And I was worse because I almost passed right out. They had to take me out. My dad was born on the 15th of December 1890 and died the 17th of August 1970. But both of my brothers died with cancer. And so that left me all alone. My mom died at the age of 89 plus. She would have been 90.